Why should we talk about dementia? Imagine this situation. 68-year-old Emily started forgetting where she put her glasses. At first, her family joked, "Grandma, you're so absent-minded again." But 6 months later, Emily forgot the way home from the store she had been going to for 30 years. She was found 3 blocks from home, confused and frightened. When the family consulted a doctor, it turned out that signs of dementia had been appearing for 2 years already, but everyone attributed them to age. Precious time for early intervention was lost. Such stories happen every day around the world. And often, the reason lies in our perceptions of dementia. We either panic about a forgotten phone, or conversely, ignore serious symptoms. Dementia is not just elderly forgetfulness. It's a complex of symptoms affecting memory, thinking, speech, and decision-making ability. Alzheimer's disease is just one type of dementia, though the most common. But why do we know so little about it? Because the topic is often taboo. People were embarrassed to discuss memory problems, fear diagnosis, and society often doesn't know how to relate to those facing this condition. Today we'll examine 11 of the most common myths about dementia that can cost health and happy years of life. I'll share real stories of people specialists work with and knowledge that will help you protect yourself and your loved ones. Myth 1. Dementia is an inevitable part of aging. What can you do? Old age isn't a joy. How often we hear this phrase when talking about forgetfulness in elderly people. Many are convinced that if a person lives to a certain age, they will inevitably face dementia. But this is a profound misconception. Henry, a 92-year-old mathematics professor, still teaches at the university. He remembers all his students' names, solves complex equations, and writes scientific papers. Meanwhile, his younger sister Elizabeth, at 73, could no longer dress herself or recognize her children. Yes, age is a significant risk factor. But this doesn't mean dementia is normal for elderly people. Most 80 to 90-year-olds never face serious cognitive impairments. What really matters, besides age, is genetics, lifestyle, and the presence of chronic diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular problems. Don't automatically classify someone as declining just because they occasionally forget new acquaintances' names. This could be a natural age-related change, not developing into pathology. Myth 2. If I forget things, it means I'm developing dementia. Familiar situation? You can't find your keys, forgot to call back a colleague, or don't remember what you wanted to buy at the store. And immediately the thought, "Oh my God, I'm developing dementia." Such panic can happen to a person of any age. Maria, a 35-year-old financial analyst, once forgot an important meeting with a client. A week later, she couldn't remember her work computer password, and then forgot to pick up her child from school. In panic, she consulted a neurologist, convinced she had an early form of dementia. Examination showed Maria had serious emotional burnout and chronic sleep deprivation. After a month of vacation and normalizing her sleep pattern, the dementia symptoms disappeared completely. It's important to understand, temporary memory lapses happen to everyone. They can result from stress, fatigue, sleep deprivation, anxiety, depression, or medication side effects. Dementia is characterized by much more serious changes that truly affect daily life. A person with dementia doesn't just forget where they put their phone. They might not remember how to use the phone, what a phone is, or what it's for. Additionally, dementia is usually accompanied by other symptoms: mood and behavior changes, communication difficulties, problems with logic and planning. Myth 3. Dementia only affects very elderly people. Many believe that if a person isn't at least 65 to 70 years old, it's too early to worry about dementia. But let's look at Jacob's story. Jacob was 48 when colleagues noticed that he, a brilliant engineer with 20 years of experience, suddenly began getting confused with blueprints and forgetting important project details. Jacob's wife attributed this to fatigue and stress, since he's still a young man. But when Jacob twice forgot the way home from work, it became clear something serious was happening. The diagnosis shocked everyone: early onset Alzheimer's disease. Yes, there are forms of dementia with early onset that can appear in people 40 to 50 years old and even younger. Although such cases are less common, they are quite real. Unfortunately, because of the stereotype, this only happens to old people, diagnosis is often made later than it could be. Yet early intervention is one of the key factors for successful therapy and slowing disease progression. Myth 4. People with dementia don't understand what's happening around them. Many think that if someone is diagnosed with dementia, they immediately turn into a vegetable, lose touch with reality, and don't understand what's happening. This is a terrible misconception that deeply hurts those facing the disease. The story of Olivia, a 75-year-old woman diagnosed with moderate dementia, says otherwise. Once her daughter was discussing her mother's condition with a doctor in her presence, talking about Olivia in the third person as if she wasn't there. Suddenly, Olivia said, "I can hear everything, dear, and it hurts me very much that you talk about me as if I'm already gone." These words shocked the daughter and became an important lesson for the medical staff. Dementia progresses in different stages. In early and middle stages, people retain a significant portion of cognitive functions. They can communicate, make decisions, and understand what's happening around them. Moreover, many patients realize that their memory and intellect aren't what they used to be, and this awareness can cause them strong emotional pain. Even in late stages, when verbal communication becomes difficult, people with dementia can pick up on the emotional tone of conversation, understand facial expressions, and respond to touch and music. They continue to feel, even if they cannot express it in ways we're accustomed to. Myth 5. If my parent had dementia, then I will get it too. My father died from Alzheimer's disease, so the same awaits me. Such thoughts haunted Elizabeth for years. She lived in constant fear, tested her memory, and panicked at the slightest forgetfulness. This fear poisoned her life and itself caused problems with concentration and memory due to chronic stress. People often confuse increased risk with inevitable fate. Yes, genetic factors matter, but not in every case. For Alzheimer's disease, certain genes have been identified that increase the likelihood of illness, but statistics show less than 5% of cases are directly linked to hereditary mutations. Most people whose parents suffered from dementia will never face this disease. Conversely, many develop it without having any relatives with a similar diagnosis. What really matters is lifestyle, physical and mental activity, nutrition, control of chronic diseases, and social connections. These factors can neutralize even genetic predisposition. Myth 6. Smoking directly causes dementia. There's a belief that if a person smokes, they automatically doom themselves to dementia. However, the connection isn't so straightforward. James, a 60-year-old man, had smoked since age 15. When diagnosed with early-stage vascular dementia, his first reaction was, "It's all because of cigarettes." But the doctor explained, smoking is just one risk factor, along with untreated hypertension, lack of physical activity, and unbalanced nutrition. All these factors together led to vascular problems, which negatively affected the brain. Smoking does increase the risk of developing cognitive impairments by about 45% compared to non-smokers. The reason is simple. Nicotine harms blood vessels, and healthy vessels are critically important for supplying the brain with oxygen and nutrients. But there's good news. Quitting smoking can significantly reduce risks. Positive changes begin literally from the first months without tobacco. Cardiovascular system condition improves. Risk of strokes and mini-strokes decreases, which favorably affects brain function. Myth 7. There's a medicine that will completely cure dementia. Doctor, give us that medicine that will cure my mom from Alzheimer's. Doctors hear such requests regularly. People often believe modern medicine has already found a magic pill that will reverse the destructive processes in the brain. Emma and her family's story is typical. When 76-year-old Emma was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, her son consulted 5 different specialists, hoping to find one who would offer real treatment. The family spent thousands of dollars on experimental drugs and miracle methods, promising complete cures. Time passed, Emma's condition worsened, and the family became increasingly disillusioned with medicine. The truth is that today, there is no drug that can completely cure dementia. Modern medications, such as cholinesterase inhibitors, memantine, and others, can alleviate symptoms, improve quality of life, and slow disease progression for a certain time. But we cannot yet completely stop or reverse the disease. However, this is no reason for despair. Medical science is actively developing. Research continues. New therapeutic approaches emerge. Innovative treatment methods are being tested. It's quite possible we'll see a breakthrough in this area in the near future. Myth 8. Dementia can be completely prevented by proper lifestyle. Sometimes you can hear the opposite claim. If you eat right, exercise, train your brain, and take vitamins, dementia will never occur. Henry, a passionate advocate of healthy lifestyle, followed the Mediterranean diet, ran marathons, solved complex puzzles, and never missed a museum opening. He was confident his brain was protected from any problems. Imagine his surprise when at 72, he was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. How is this possible? I did everything right, he wondered. Unfortunately, there's no 100% guarantee against dementia. A healthy lifestyle is a powerful contribution to prevention that can reduce risk by 30 to 50%. But completely eliminating the possibility of disease is impossible. There are many types of dementia: vascular, frontotemporal, Lewy body, etc. And their causes are diverse. Genetics, age, past illnesses all play a role. However, by following recommendations for a healthy lifestyle, we can significantly reduce risks and delay possible manifestations of dementia. Henry's case is also illustrative in that even with dementia, his condition progressed more slowly than in many other patients. Doctors explained this precisely by his previous healthy lifestyle, which created a sort of cognitive reserve. Myth 9. Certain vitamins and herbs can prevent or cure dementia. Drink noni juice, take ginseng, add coconut oil to food, and no dementia. Such advice can be found everywhere, from neighbors to internet bloggers. Olivia, a 65-year-old retired teacher, after her sister was diagnosed with dementia, began taking dozens of different supplements and herbs, spending a significant portion of her pension on them. She was sure she was creating a shield against the disease. However, when she went to the doctor complaining of weakness and dizziness, It turned out the cause was interactions between various supplements and her hypertension medications. Scientific research to date does not confirm the effectiveness of folk remedies in terms of curing or clearly preventing dementia. Yes, some of them may relieve anxiety, improve sleep, or increase general tone, but claims that they prevent destruction of nerve cells are exaggerations. Vitamins and supplements are indeed important if a person has identified deficiencies, such as vitamin B12, which is associated with cognitive functions. But uncontrolled intake of supplements, just in case, not only doesn't guarantee protection from dementia, but can be dangerous for health. Myth 10. If diagnosed with dementia, life is over. This is perhaps the most destructive myth. Many people, upon hearing the diagnosis, imagine a slow fading away and complete absence of joy and meaning in the remaining life. The story of Sophia, a 70-year-old artist, refutes this misconception. When diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's disease, she was devastated. But instead of giving up, Sophia decided to use her remaining time as fully as possible. She continued painting, and her pictures became even more emotional and profound. She started a diary where she wrote down her thoughts and memories. She organized an exhibition of her works dedicated to the theme of memory and oblivion. Now, 5 years after diagnosis, Sophia still leads an active life, albeit with certain limitations. With early diagnosis and proper treatment, people with dementia can live years of active, fulfilling life. The use of symptomatic medications, psychotherapy, proper care, social support, all this allows maintaining satisfactory quality of life for a long period. It's important to use compensatory strategies, notes, visual reminders, special devices that help a person with dementia remain independent as long as possible. The main thing is to understand limitations and not be afraid to seek help from specialists and loved ones. Myth 11. People with dementia inevitably become aggressive and violent. There's a stereotype that dementia necessarily transforms a person into an aggressive, uncontrollable monster who can harm themselves and others. John, an 82-year-old former physics professor, was always a gentle and delicate person. When he was diagnosed with dementia, his daughter Anna feared her father would turn into an aggressive stranger, as happened with neighbor Betty, who in her last years shouted and fought with nursing home staff. But in John's case, this didn't happen. He became more withdrawn, sometimes confused relatives' names, but remained as kind and calm as before. Not every form of dementia is accompanied by aggression. If aggressive behavior does appear, it's most often the result of internal anxiety, fear, or misunderstanding of what's happening. A person with dementia may not recognize those around them, not understand where they are, experience pain or discomfort, and react defensively. Betty's case is illustrative. When the nursing home staff changed their approach to communicating with her, created a calm atmosphere and clear daily routine, her aggressive behavior significantly decreased. It turned out to be a reaction to noise, bustle, and being treated like a child. Proper care, calm environment, empathy, and understanding the needs of a person with dementia all help prevent or minimize manifestations of aggression. Why is early diagnosis so important? Imagine the brain as a huge archive with millions of files, memories, skills, knowledge, personal stories. Now imagine someone gradually deleting these files, and you don't always notice which ones disappeared. When people say, "Oh, it's just age, nothing serious," they miss the moment when intervention could have helped. Emily, whom we mentioned at the beginning, could have received help a year or year and a half earlier if the family had paid attention to the first warning signs. She prepared the same dish for dinner several times, forgetting she had already done so, began missing meetings with friends that had been a ritual for decades, started getting lost in a familiar supermarket. Early diagnosis is an opportunity to slow dementia development, apply prevention and therapy methods, adjust lifestyle, and make the period of active life longer. What seems like trivial absent-mindedness may be the first signal worth discussing with a neurologist or psychiatrist. How to upgrade your brain and maintain cognitive health. Despite the fact that dementia cannot be prevented with 100% guarantee, we can significantly reduce risks and delay possible manifestations of the disease. Here are several scientifically based strategies. 1. Physical activity. Alexander, a 75-year-old man suffering from a mild form of vascular dementia, noticed an amazing thing. On days when he took an hour-long walk, his thinking was clearer and his memory sharper. When he shared this observation with his doctor, the doctor explained, "Physical activity improves circulation, delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the brain. Regular walks, swimming, dancing, yoga, any type of activity is beneficial for the brain. Especially effective are exercises requiring coordination and attention, such as dancing or tennis. Try to move at least 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week." 2. Mediterranean diet. Charlotte, a 68-year-old woman with a family history of Alzheimer's disease, on her doctor's advice, switched to the Mediterranean diet. Lots of vegetables, fruits, nuts, fish, olive oil. Moderate consumption of red meat. After 6 months, she noticed that not only did she feel better physically, but her memory and concentration improved. What makes the Mediterranean diet beneficial for the brain? Omega-3 fatty acids in fish, antioxidants in vegetables and fruits, healthy fats in nuts and olive oil. All participate in processes related to memory and thinking. 3. Intellectual challenges. Mason, retiring at 65, decided not to stop at what he'd achieved and enrolled in foreign language courses. First, he tackled Italian, then Spanish. 3 years later, when his peers complained about memory deterioration, Mason could freely communicate in 2 new languages and planned to learn a third. The brain, like muscles, needs regular training. Reading books, solving crosswords, learning new skills, playing musical instruments, drawing, foreign languages, all this helps maintain neural connections and create new ones. Particularly useful are activities that simultaneously engage different cognitive functions: memory, attention, logic. 4. Social activity. Charlotte, widowed at 70, fell into depression and self-isolation. Her daughter, concerned about her mother's condition, enrolled her in a local gardening club. Initially, Charlotte resisted, but eventually became engrossed in the new hobby and made friends. 3 years later, when she was diagnosed with a mild form of dementia, doctors noted that her rich social life likely helped slow the disease progression. Communication, friendly meetings, group games, volunteering all activate various parts of the brain. Studies show that people with rich social lives have a lower risk of developing dementia. Emotional connections, lively conversations, new acquaintances, all stimulate our brain and create cognitive reserve. 5. Stress management. Michael, a major company executive, lived with chronic stress for years. At 62, he began noticing problems with memory and concentration. Doctors found that constantly elevated cortisol levels, stress hormone, negatively affected the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory. On specialist advice, Michael mastered meditation and deep breathing techniques, began regularly allocating time for rest and hobbies. After 6 months, his cognitive functions significantly improved. Chronic stress is devastating for the brain, raising cortisol levels and causing inflammatory processes. Learn to relax. Meditation, breathing practices, nature walks, hobbies that bring joy, all help reduce stress levels and protect the brain from stress's negative impact. Even 10 to 15 minutes of meditation or deep breathing daily can substantially improve your well-being and cognitive functions. 6. Healthy sleep. Victor, a 58-year-old businessman, slept 4 to 5 hours a night for years, proud of his efficiency. When he began noticing memory problems and increased irritability, a neurologist explained that during sleep, the brain cleans itself of toxins and forms long-term memories. After Victor normalized his sleep schedule, his cognitive functions significantly improved. Sleep deprivation is one of the main enemies of memory and thinking. Try to sleep 7 to 9 hours a day, depending on individual norms. Sleep quality is no less important than duration. Create comfortable sleep conditions: a quiet, cool, and dark bedroom, comfortable bed. Establish a regular sleep and wake schedule. 7. Control of chronic diseases Ethan ignored. His hypertension for many years, believing that pressure of 150 per 100 is normal for his age. At 68, he faced serious cognitive problems. MRI showed multiple microstrokes that had been damaging his brain for years due to untreated hypertension. Conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol can damage vessels that feed the brain and increase the risk of developing dementia. Regularly undergo medical examinations and strictly follow doctors' recommendations for treating chronic diseases. This is an investment in your cognitive health for many years. How to know when it's time to see a doctor? Many people ignore the first signs of cognitive impairment for years, attributing them to fatigue, stress, or age. But early consultation with a specialist can radically change the prognosis. What red flags should you pay attention to? 1. Short-term memory problems that affect daily life. Not just forgot where I put my keys, but forgot what I was doing an hour ago. 2. Difficulties with planning and problem solving. For example, it became difficult to follow a recipe that the person has prepared dozens of times, or calculate change at a store. 3. Problems performing familiar tasks. Say, a person forgets how to use a microwave or washing machine. 4. Disorientation in time and space. Got lost in a familiar area. Doesn't remember what day of the week or year it is. 5. Problems with speech and writing. Difficulty finding words, repeating the same information, forgetting simple words. 6. Poor judgment. For example, a person gives large sums of money to telephone scammers or goes out in winter wearing summer clothes. 7. Loss of initiative and interest in hobbies, social activities, work. 8. Changes in mood and personality. A person becomes anxious, suspicious, fearful, irritable, without apparent reason. If you notice several of these signs in yourself or loved ones that persist for weeks or months, it's a reason to consult a neurologist or psychiatrist. Conclusion: dementia is not a sentence or punishment of fate. It's a disease requiring understanding, attention, and care. Many people facing dementia continue to live fulfilling lives for many years, maintaining the ability to feel joy and the love of those close to them. The stories we discuss today are not exceptions. Around the world, millions of people diagnosed with dementia and their families find ways to adapt to new conditions, and maintain quality of life. Yes, it's not an easy path, requiring patience, love, and support. But if signals are recognized in time, therapy begun, lifestyle adjusted, and a supportive environment created, the prognosis can be substantially improved, both for the patient and those around them. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we know about dementia, the less we fear it, and the more effectively we can help ourselves and our loved ones. Science doesn't stand still. Every year, new research, diagnostic methods, and treatments appear. It's quite possible we'll soon see a breakthrough in this area. Meanwhile, let's do what's in our power. Take care of our brains, lead healthy lifestyles, be attentive to the first signs of cognitive problems, and support those who face this disease. Share in the comments which of the 11 myths surprised you most. Perhaps you or your loved ones have encountered similar misconceptions. Tell your story. It might help someone else overcome fear and seek help in time. If this information was useful to you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like. Even better, share this video with those it might help. Together, we can break the stigma around dementia and ensure that people facing this problem receive timely help and support. See you in the next video, where we'll continue the conversation about brain health and cognitive longevity.